Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Desmond Woods. We're honoured to acknowledge Secretary Wilbur Ross, US Secretary of Commerce, and Miss Hilary Geary Ross, accompanied by His Excellency Mr. Arthur B. Culverhouse Jr., US Ambassador to Australia, and their accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools. From Queensland, St Ignatius Primary School, Toowong, and from Victoria, Cambridge Primary School, Hoppers Crossing. I now invite all who are able to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Valentine Montgomery Starkey. Valentine Starkey was born near Mangrove Creek, north of the Hawkesbury River in New South Wales on the 14th of March, 1894, the son of Joseph and Emma Starkey. It is not known if Starkey attended school, but at the time of his enlistment he signed his name with an X. He worked as a surveyor's chainman, likely with his older brother Reuben, who was a surveyor's cook. He was described as a brave lad who had a strong desire to sign up and fight for Australia after hearing of German actions on the Western Front and in Belgium. He enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 28th of January 1916 and began training with the reinforcements of the 4th Infantry Battalion. His older brother Reuben served in the 1st Division Machine Gun Company, and the two brothers would spend much of the war serving on the same sectors of the Western Front. Starkey sailed from Sydney aboard the transport ship Wiltshire to England in August 1916, and after a brief period of training, transferred to France, where he joined his unit for the first time in January 1917. He joined his unit while they were near the Somme River during one of the coldest winters in living memory. Starkey spent the next few months experiencing the hardships and the horrors of trench warfare on the Western Front, manning frontline trenches, working and resting behind the lines. The men lived in terrible conditions, dominated by mud, German artillery shelling, and rifle fire. On the night of the 7th of May 1917, Starkey and the 4th Battalion were in the trenches near Bullecourt, north of the Somme, when they came under a sustained, heavy German high-explosive artillery bombardment. The attack lasted throughout the night and into the early hours the next morning until the unit was relieved and withdrawn to an area known as the Sunken Road near Norey. Starkey was killed in action during this period, likely by artillery fire. He was 23 years old, and at the time of his death, his older brother was less than 5 kilometers away. He was buried near Norey, but in the chaos of the war, his grave was lost, and he now has no known grave. His name appears on the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial in France, which lists the names of over 10,700 Australians of the Great War whose final resting place is not known. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. And his photograph, as you see, is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Valentine Montgomery Starkey, who gave his life for us, for our freedom, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.